I found a phone hidden in my daughter's room, and every message on it was about me. That actually happened. Before I tell you everything, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and tell me in the comments where you're watching this story from. Now let me take you back to the moment I realized my own home was hiding secrets I was never meant to uncover. I wasn't snooping. That's what I keep telling myself, even now. I was just putting away laundry, folding my daughter's clothes the way I always did, trying to ignore the quiet that had settled over the house since her behavior started changing. Emily was 16. Quiet before but never distant. Lately though, she barely looked at me. She flinched when I entered a room. She locked her bedroom door at night. And when I asked simple questions, "How was school? Are you okay?" she answered like she was afraid of saying the wrong thing. That afternoon, as I lifted a pile of hoodies from the bottom drawer, I felt something hard beneath the fabric. Not a book, not a charger, something heavier. My heart skipped when I pulled it out. Phone. Not the phone I paid for. Not the one she used openly. This one was older. Scratched. No case. Powered off. I stood there for a long moment, staring at it, my hands trembling. Parents aren't supposed to go through their children's things, I know that. But something about that phone felt wrong. Like it didn't belong in my house at all. I pressed the power button. Turned on immediately. No lock screen. No password. Just a messaging app. Already open. And the first message I saw made my blood run cold. She suspects nothing. Keep watching her. I didn't understand at first. Her who? Then I scrolled up and saw my own name. Again. And again. Messages time-stamped late at night. Early mornings. During hours when Emily was supposedly asleep or at school. She leaves for work at 7:40. She checked the mail herself today. She cried again last night. Felt sick. These weren't messages to my daughter. They were messages about me. I sat down on the edge of Emily's bed, my legs barely able to hold me. My mind raced through possibilities. Bullying, some sick prank, maybe someone had stolen the phone, and then I saw a message that shattered every excuse I tried to build. Make sure she doesn't find the truth. Not yet. My chest tightened. What truth? I scrolled further and realized something even more terrifying. The messages weren't written by strangers. They were written by someone who knew my routine, my habits, my fears. Someone who lived close enough to watch me. Someone who might already be inside my home. And as I heard the front door open downstairs, Emily coming home, I realized I had seconds to decide. Do I confront my daughter? Or pretend I never found the phone at all? I barely had time to put the phone back where I found it. My heart was racing so hard I was sure Emily would hear it the moment she walked into the room. I shoved the device under the pile of hoodies, folded the clothes on top with shaking hands, and forced myself to stand up and breathe. One deep breath. Then another. I had made my decision. I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. I needed to know more. "Mom!" Emily's voice echoed from the hallway. "I'm home. I'm upstairs," I replied, trying to sound normal. My voice cracked anyway. She appeared in the doorway seconds later, backpack slung over one shoulder, her eyes immediately scanning the room. I noticed it now. How alert she was, how her gaze flicked to the drawer where I'd just been. "You were in my room?" she asked. "I was putting away laundry," I said, holding up an empty basket as proof. "Didn't want it wrinkling." She nodded slowly, but something in her expression tightened. Her jaw clenched, and for a split second I saw fear. Not teenage annoyance. Real fear. "Oh," she said. "Okay." She stepped inside, closed the door behind her, and leaned against it as if blocking an escape route. My stomach twisted. "Everything all right at school?" I asked, forcing myself to meet her eyes. "Fine." The word came too fast. Too rehearsed. I watched her carefully as she crossed the room and opened the same drawer. My chest burned as I waited, convinced she'd pull out the phone and realize it had been touched. She didn't. She only grabbed a sweater and shut the drawer again. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. Because I realized something horrifying. Whoever was sending those messages didn't think I was suspicious, which meant someone was feeding them information in real time. Dinner that night felt like a performance. Emily barely spoke. She picked at her food, checking her phone, the new one, every few minutes. I noticed her fingers shaking slightly as she typed. I noticed how she flinched when my phone buzzed on the counter. At one point, I excused myself to the bathroom just to breathe. I locked the door and leaned over the sink, staring at my reflection. She's your daughter, I told myself. There has to be an explanation. But the messages echoed in my head. She cried again last night. She checked the mail herself today. Details no teenager should care about. Details someone else would want. That night I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I heard the soft creak of Emily's door opening. I stayed perfectly still, my heart pounding in my ears. Footsteps padded down the hallway. Then a faint whisper. Not on the phone. Loud. I know, she murmured. I won't mess it up. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from gasping. A few seconds later, her door closed again. I lay there until morning, my mind unraveling. The next day, after Emily left for school, I went straight to her room. I locked the door behind me. This time I didn't hesitate. I pulled out the hidden phone and scrolled deeper than before. That's when I found the photos. Pictures of me. Leaving the house. Unlocking my car. Sitting alone at a cafe I sometimes visited on my lunch break. Some of them were taken days ago. Others months. My legs gave out and I slid onto the floor, clutching the phone like it might burn me. Then I saw a message that made my blood run ice cold. She's starting to notice changes. Be careful. If she finds out who you really are, we'll have to move forward sooner. I stared at the words, my vision blurring. Who you really are. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway snapped me out of my panic. Emily wasn't supposed to be home yet. I looked at the time. 11:17 a.m. My heart dropped, because whoever had been watching me was no longer hiding. And this time they were getting closer. The sound of the car door slamming outside made my entire body freeze. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at the phone in my hands, the last message still glowing on the screen like a threat I couldn't escape. If she finds out who you really are, we'll have to move forward sooner. I shut the phone off and shoved it back into the drawer just as footsteps echoed up the stairs. Mom! Emily called. Her voice was calm. Who come? I'm cleaning, I said, unlocking the bedroom door and forcing myself to smile as she appeared. You're home early. School let us out, she replied. Power issue. She walked past me into her room, eyes sweeping over everything. A bed, desk, a drawer. My pulse thundered. You okay? She asked, finally looking at me. Yes, I lied. Just tired. She studied my face for a long moment. I could almost see the calculation happening behind her eyes. Then she nodded. Okay. I left her room, my legs weak, and locked myself in my own bedroom. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down. Someone was coordinating this. Someone with authority. Someone who knew how to stay invisible. And the worst part, Emily didn't look like a victim. She looked like someone following instructions. That afternoon, I did something I never thought I'd do. Check my house. Not casually. Not half-heartedly. I searched every room. Closets. Cabinets. Under furniture. The garage. Even the crawl space beneath the stairs. I was looking for cameras, microphones. Anything that didn't belong. Found nothing. Which scared me more than if I had. That evening, while Emily showered, I checked our Wi-Fi router. Devices were connected that I didn't recognize. 3 of them. All unnamed. When I tried to disconnect them, the system froze. Then my phone buzzed. An unknown number. Please don't do that. My stomach dropped. Another message followed immediately. It makes things complicated. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Me, who is this? Unknown. Someone trying to protect your daughter. Me from what? Unknown. From you finding out the truth too early. Felt dizzy. Me, why are you watching me? Unknown, because you're not as insignificant as you think. Before I could type another word, the messages disappeared. Deleted remotely. I ran to Emily's room. She was standing in front of her mirror, towel wrapped around her hair, phone in hand. She looked up, startled. Mom! I searched her face, desperate for any sign of guilt or fear. Who are you talking to? I asked. No one, she said quickly. Just a group chat. I wanted to believe her. But when she turned the screen toward me, it was empty. No apps open. No notifications. That night I locked my bedroom door. At 3:12 a.m. I heard it. Soft click. My door handle turning. I sat up in bed, heart racing, staring at the door as it slowly stopped moving. Then my phone vibrated on the nightstand. New message. You should really stop looking. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stared into the darkness, finally understanding something that terrified me to my core. This wasn't about spying. It was about control. And I was losing it. After that night, I stopped pretending this was something I could handle alone. Barely slept. Every sound in the house made my muscles tense. The walls felt thinner, like secrets were seeping through them. I watched Emily constantly, searching for cracks in the version of my daughter I thought I knew. She was careful now. Too careful. She erased her browsing history, cleared messages, changed passwords. And every time I tried to ask something casual, she answered like she'd rehearsed it. That morning, after she left for school, I followed an instinct I had been ignoring. I went to the attic. It was dusty and cramped, filled with old boxes from before the divorce. Things I hadn't touched in years. I didn't even know what I was looking for, only that something in this house predated the phone, the messages, the watching. I found a box labeled Emily. School records. Inside were report cards, drawings, certificates. And something that didn't belong. A manila folder. No school logo. No explanation. Just a date. Years ago. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were documents, evaluations, psychological assessments, and a name I didn't recognize. Project Lens. My heart started racing as I read. Emily had been enrolled in a behavioral observation program after an incident at school. The language was clinical, detached. It talked about adaptability, emotional intelligence, suggestibility. Felt sick. This wasn't a school program. This was an experiment. One page mentioned parental consent. My signature was there. But I didn't remember signing any of it. The handwriting was mine, but slightly off. Like someone had traced it. I sank to the floor. They had been watching Emily for years. Training her. Monitoring her responses. Another page made my blood run cold. Subject shows strong attachment to maternal figure. Recommend controlled information exposure to assess loyalty under stress. Maternal figure. Me. I dropped the papers when I heard the front door open. Emily was home again, early. I barely had time to shove the folder back into the box before she called my name. Mom. Her voice sounded different. Firmer. I need to talk to you. We sat at the kitchen table, facing each other like strangers. Her hands were folded neatly in front of her. They told me you'd start asking questions, she said quietly. My throat tightened. Who told you that? She hesitated. They said you wouldn't understand. Understand what? I demanded. That my daughter has been used like some kind of experiment. Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed steady. They said you were the variable. That word echoed in my head. Variable. I reached across the table, grabbing her hands. Emily, listen to me. Whatever they told you. They told me you might try to stop it, she interrupted. And if you did, it would put me in danger. Froze. Danger how? She looked away. I'm not supposed to say. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly against the floor. This ends now. Whoever they are, I'm calling the police. She finally looked at me, then really looked at me. And for the first time I saw fear. They already know you found the folder, she whispered. They know everything. My phone buzzed. A message appeared. Please don't involve outsiders. This process is almost complete. I stared at the screen, my chest tight. If you cooperate, your daughter will be safe. I looked at Emily and realized the truth was far worse than I imagined. They weren't just watching me. They were testing how far I would go to protect my child. I didn't answer the message. I just stared at my phone, my fingers numb, my mind screaming. If you cooperate, your daughter will be safe. It was the oldest threat in the world. The most effective one. They weren't asking for money. They weren't demanding silence. They wanted obedience. I looked at Emily, sitting across from me, her shoulders tense, eyes darting toward every sound in the house. She looked smaller than she had that morning. Younger. Who are they? I asked softly. She shook her head. They don't tell me names. Just rules. What rules? She swallowed. To observe. To report. To follow instructions exactly. My stomach churned. And if you don't? Her silence was answer enough. That night I agreed to play along. I hated myself for it. The next message came at exactly 9 p.m. Good. First task. Behave normally. I laughed bitterly at that. Normal no longer existed. They told me when to leave the house, what errands to run, which cafe to visit, when to come home. Each instruction framed as a suggestion, but I could feel the threat beneath every word. Emily watched me constantly, torn between guilt and fear. On the third day they escalated. We need to evaluate your response to emotional pressure. My phone rang. It was my ex-husband. We hadn't spoken in months. Why are you calling? I asked, already tense. I thought you should know, he said carefully. Someone contacted me. Asked questions about you. About Emily. My blood ran cold. What kind of questions? Personal ones, he replied. Things only family would know. That night, I confronted Emily in her room. They're involving your father now, I said. This has gone too far. Her eyes filled with tears. I told them not to. Then tell them to stop. She shook her head. I can't. Why not? Her voice broke. Because they showed me what happens when people don't follow instructions. She reached under her bed and pulled out the hidden phone. She opened a video file. I wish I had never seen it. It showed a woman sitting in a small room, her hands shaking. A calm voice off camera asked her questions. Simple ones at first. When she hesitated, the tone changed. Harper. Colder. The woman started crying. The video ended abruptly. That was one of the subjects, Emily whispered. She failed. I felt bile rise in my throat. This is illegal, I said. This is criminal. They don't care, Emily replied. They said the data is more important than people. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, realizing something that terrified me. They weren't just testing me. They were conditioning Emily to see this as normal, as necessary. And if I didn't act soon, I would lose her. Not physically, but completely. The next morning I made a decision. I would give them what they wanted, but not the way they expected. I became exactly what they wanted. On the surface, I followed every instruction with precision. I went where they told me to go. I smiled when they expected me to smile. I answered their questions with just enough honesty to keep them satisfied. Good, they messaged often. Your compliance is noted. But behind the scenes, I was planning my escape. I started keeping two versions of myself. The woman they observed, and the mother who refused to surrender her child. Emily noticed the change immediately. You're being careful now, she said one evening, watching me wash dishes. I'm being smart, I replied. She didn't look convinced. That night I tested them. I left my phone in the bedroom and walked into the backyard, out of range of the Wi-Fi. I stayed there for 3 minutes. When I came back inside, my phone lit up. Please don't do that again. My hands shook. They were faster than I thought. The next day, I began collecting evidence. screenshots, patterns, every instruction, every threat. I backed everything up to a flash drive I hid inside a sealed container in the garage, buried under tools no one ever touched. I needed leverage. I also needed help. Someone outside their network. I thought of only one person. My sister. She lived 3 states away. Off-grid as much as anyone could be these days. No smart home. No shared accounts. I waited until they instructed me to go grocery shopping. Inside the store, I pretended to browse while using a payphone near the restrooms, one I hadn't even realized still existed. My voice shook as I spoke. "They're watching me," I whispered. "And Emily." There was a pause. Then, "Get out," my sister said. "Now." That night the messages changed. "We sense hesitation." The wording made my skin crawl. "Remember what's at stake." Emily stopped looking at me with guilt. Now she looked at me with fear. "They know you're hiding something," she whispered. I took her hands. "Listen to me. We are leaving." Her eyes widened. "We can't." "We can. And we will." At 2 a.m. we packed quietly. Only essentials. Documents. Flash drive. As we opened the front door, my phone vibrated. One final message lit up the screen. "This will be considered a failure." Then another. "Subjects who fail do not get second chances." The porch light flickered. Car engines started nearby. And in that moment I realized something horrifying. They weren't just watching. They were waiting. The moment we stepped off the porch, the car across the street turned its headlights on. Bright. Blinding. Emily froze beside me, her fingers tightening around my wrist. "Don't run," she whispered. That terrified me more than the car. The driver's door opened slowly. A man stepped out, dressed plainly. Jeans, jacket, nothing remarkable. That was the worst part. He looked like anyone. "Good evening," he said calmly. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." I pulled Emily behind me. "Stay away from us." He smiled, not cruelly, not kindly. Just professionally. "This was never an escape," he said. "It was a compliance assessment." My phone buzzed. Phase 3 initiated. The man glanced at it, then back at me. "You've done very well, considering the circumstances. Most subjects panic earlier." "You used my daughter," I said through clenched teeth. He nodded once. "She adapted faster than expected." I wanted to scream. Instead, I asked the only question that mattered. "Why us?" He studied me for a long moment. "Because you question authority. Because you love deeply. Because you would break rules for your child." He stepped closer. "We needed to know how far you'd go." Emily was shaking now. "You promised her she'd be safe," she said, her voice breaking. "And she is," he replied smoothly. "As long as you continue cooperating." The world felt unreal, like I was standing inside someone else's nightmare. They escorted us back inside the house. Not forcefully, not gently. Like hosts guiding guests who had overstayed their welcome. Inside, the lights were already on. The hidden phone lay on the kitchen table. Waiting. "Sit," the man said. We did. "This project," he continued, "identifies individuals capable of operating under extreme psychological pressure. People who can be shaped into assets." I laughed bitterly. "Assets for what?" He didn't answer. Instead, he slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos. Emily. My sister's house. My breath caught. "You contacted her," he said calmly. That was instructive. Emily looked at me, guilt flooding her face. "I'm sorry." I reached for her hand. "This isn't your fault." But I was wrong. This was the point of it all. To see if I would protect her. Or sacrifice everything else. The man stood. "Tomorrow, you'll be asked to make a decision." "What kind of decision?" I asked. His smile returned. "One that tells us who you really are." I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid of what they might do, but because I finally understood what they wanted. They didn't want obedience. They wanted proof. At exactly 6 a.m., my phone buzzed. Today's evaluation will determine continuation. Emily sat at the edge of her bed, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the floor. She looked like a child again, stripped of the composure they had taught her. "They're going to make you choose," she whispered. "Choose what?" I asked, though I already knew. She swallowed hard. "Between protecting me and telling the truth." At 9 a.m., we were driven to a building I had passed 100 times before without noticing. Forgettable. No signs. No windows on the lower floors. Inside, everything was white. Sterile. Silent. They separated us immediately. "Temporary," one of them said. "For observation." The room they put me in had a single chair and a screen on the wall. A voice spoke, calm and detached. "You have been evaluated for years without your knowledge," it said. "Your responses indicate high emotional resilience and moral conflict tolerance." I clenched my fists. "What do you want from me?" The screen lit up. Emily appeared on it, sitting alone in another white room. "She will be released," the voice said, "if you cooperate." My heart pounded. "Cooperate how?" "You will give a statement," it replied. "You will confirm that you consented to Project Lens and that all procedures were ethical." "That's a lie." "Yes," the voice agreed calmly. "That's the test." I stared at the screen, at my daughter's frightened face. "And if I refuse?" "Yes." There was a pause. "She will remain under observation." I felt my chest tighten. This was it. The moment they had engineered from the beginning. They didn't care about the lie. They cared whether I would abandon my values to save my child. Closed my eyes. I thought of every lesson I had tried to teach Emily. About honesty. About courage. About standing up when something was wrong. Then I spoke. "No." The room went silent. Emily's image flickered. The voice returned, slightly colder now. "Then you have failed." The screen went dark. And in that moment I realized something terrifying. I had just become the final data point. The silence that followed my refusal was heavier than any threat they had made before. For a long time nothing happened. No alarms. No raised voices. No punishment. Just waiting. I sat alone in the white room, staring at the blank screen where Emily had been moments earlier, my heart pounding so loudly it felt like it might expose me. I wondered if this was another test, if panic itself was the final variable. Then the lights flickered. Once. The voice returned, but it was different now. Less composed. "Remain seated," it said. The door opened. Not for them. For a woman I didn't recognize. She looked out of place. Her clothes were ordinary. Her expression, conflicted. "You need to listen to me," she whispered quickly, closing the door behind her. "You were never supposed to say no." My throat tightened. "Where is my daughter?" "She's safe," the woman said. "For now." Understood. "Who are you?" "Someone who helped build this," she replied. "And someone who finally realized what it became." She handed me a small device. A recorder. "Project Lens isn't about data anymore," she said urgently. "It's about control. Creating compliant individuals who don't resist authority." "Then why let me fail?" "Yes." She shook her head. "Because you didn't fail. You proved something we tried to erase." She leaned closer. "People who refuse to trade truth for fear are dangerous to systems like this." Alarms began to sound in the distance. "They're losing control," she said. "Your refusal triggered a cascade. Too many inconsistencies. Too much attention." "What about Emily?" I demanded. She hesitated. "She was never meant to stay. She was meant to be leverage." My chest burned with rage. The woman opened the door slightly, peering out. "I can get you to her. But after that, you disappear." "I don't care," I said. "Take me to my daughter." We moved through narrow hallways, lights flashing, voices echoing. Doors slammed. Orders were shouted. The perfect calm was gone. We found Emily in a holding room, sitting rigidly, eyes wide. "Mom," she whispered when she saw me. I wrapped my arms around her, breathing her in like air after drowning. The woman pressed something into my hand. A drive. Everything is here, she said. Names, locations, records. Why are you doing this? Yes. She met my eyes. Because the system only works when people stay afraid. We didn't look back. By the time we reached the exit, sirens wailed outside. The woman stayed behind. As the doors slammed shut behind us, I knew one thing for certain. They had underestimated the cost of breaking someone who had nothing left to lose. And this wasn't over yet. We disappeared. Not in the dramatic way movies show it. No fake passports. No dark alleys. Just distance, silence, and time. Emily and I stayed with my sister at first. No phones. No internet. No routine. Every knock on the door made my heart stop, but days passed. Then weeks. Nothing happened. That terrified me more than anything else. The drive the woman gave me sat hidden in the floorboard of my sister's car. I didn't open it right away. I was afraid that once I did, there would be no turning back. Emily started sleeping again. Really sleeping. One night she finally spoke. They told me you would choose them, she said quietly. They said love always breaks. I hugged her tighter. They were wrong. Eventually, I turned the drive over to an investigative journalist. Someone my sister trusted. Gave no names. Asked no questions. I only said one thing. If this ever comes out, protect the children. Months later, a story broke. Not about Project Lens. Not directly. About unethical behavioral research. Missing records, anonymous whistleblowers. The articles were careful. Vague. But the tone had changed. Something had cracked. Emily asked me once if they would come back. I don't know, I answered honestly. Because the truth is, systems like that don't disappear. They adapt. They hide. They wait. But so do people who survive them. I still feel eyes on me sometimes. In crowds. Online. In reflections. But fear no longer controls me. And if you're listening to this story, there's something you should know. If someone is watching, it's because they're afraid of what happens when people stop complying. And that's the truth they never wanted me to tell.